It's just laying off somebody is very easy.
We have a 10 news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI and SSDI. Continue watching this video, guys. We have a ton of information about this. Now, if you claim Social Security, you need to be aware of this. The top leaders and lawmakers are currently discussing the future of Social Security, as more Americans struggle to pay bills. Advocates are pushing Congress to approve further relief checks. Republicans and Democrats are even pushing their own plans that they believe would improve Social Security. And now the new presidential candidate, Mike Pence, wasn't afraid to talk about this weekly political perilous choice for vice presidents and Social Security Medicare. Now he has faced an uphill battle in bringing the rest of the field into that conversation. An advocacy group of older Americans, the low-income older Americans, are getting hurt not only by inflation, but also from the end of the extra food stamp aid in March, which impacted 30 million people enrolled in the SNAP benefits. The worst hit of all groups were older Americans, with some experiencing a drop in benefits from $281 a month to as little as $23. Although inflation is ticking down from a peak a year ago, the costs are still ranked high as the budget category that risked to increase the fastest over the past 12 months. Inflation is a top concern for all lawmakers, but it's especially burdensome for older Americans. It is why it's important for lawmakers to approve additional relief for seniors and retirees. A trio of bills aimed at cutting property taxes for New Jersey seniors have cleared committee with bipartisan support this week, and the bills introduced by the Assembly Speaker will cut property tax in half for seniors and expand eligibility to certain health benefit programs. The main bill defines the Stay in New Jersey plan as a proposal to address lowering tax costs for seniors to ensure that they stay in New Jersey instead of going to other states where the cost of living is cheaper.
Today, we're accelerating the implementation of the Dependent Care Flexibility Spending Account, which will give military families the option to receive a pre-tax benefit for daycare, preschool, and summer camps, and much more. This order also focuses on providing resources for military spouses or entrepreneurs, like some of the folks up here on the stage will be here in a moment. That includes exploring new funding options, like grants and loans, to help military spouses start and sustain their businesses, and developing new resources that are going to make it easier for entrepreneurs to relocate their businesses if they have to PCS. Folks, let me close with this. Next month, we'll celebrate 50 years of the all-volunteer force. At the time, there was some debate about whether or not we could draw in the talent we needed, about whether Americans would answer the call to serve. But 50 years on, we see so clearly all of you who raised your hand, all of you who volunteered, are the reason that our military today is the greatest fighting force in the history of the world, bar none. That's the reason. And the reason we've been able to sustain that force year after year, decade after decade, is because military spouses, caregivers, and survivors have answered the call as well. You have your loved ones' backs, just like they have the country's back. So the only way to keep this force strong for the next 50 after that, is keep our promise. We uphold the sacred obligation we bear to our military members, our veterans, our spouses, caregivers, and survivors.
The month will be for state residents who filed an extension, and the first round of payments was for people who had filed their taxes by June 30th and paid to residents September 30th payments. So, example of this is what I'm talking about. In Colorado residents, they must be 18 or older by the end of this year to claim this free stimulus credit. Free stimulus credit, folks, because if a taxpayer who's eligible to receive this check owes any money to the government, like a child support or unpaid parking tickets, well, the rebate amount will decrease. Also, everybody, President Biden and top lawmakers fanned out across the country this week to visit bridges that are said to be prepared with new infrastructure money. President stopped at, for instance, the Brent Spence Bridge, which crosses the Ohio River, connecting Connecticut and Kentucky. The event touting an infusion of repair money going to bridges, not people. Why is it going to bridges? I have no idea, everybody. We all have to blame it on President Biden because the focus of the White House and the GOP leadership on areas of bipartisan cooperation is a marked contrast to the House Representatives, as they're still struggling to enact somebody to take charge. So what I want to say is that the infrastructure law put aside $100 billion for roads and bridges, and now rural broadband, ports, and other items are having some difficulties around us. For instance, this week's visit, Republican push to add amendments addressing some of the legislative priorities. Several weeks ago, Democrats and Republicans had already reached an agreement on this, but much less than $22.5 billion that the White House initially requested. This would actually be paid for using unspent funds that different agencies received as part of last year's American Rescue Plan. Some Senate Republicans, however, refused to move forward with a vote on the aid unless lawmakers considered another stimulus bill. So folks, you think that President Biden is doing a good job on the fourth stimulus check? Tell me what you think in the comments. We have a ton of good news about the fourth stimulus payment, so continue to keep on watching. $1,200 monthly checks have finally been approved and proposed for Americans, including Social Security, SSDI, and SSI. Okay, so millions of people in the United States that earn under $200,000 could get monthly payments of $1,250 very soon, while the expanded monthly child tax credit payments were temporarily paused back in December 2021. Lawmakers want to send out more stimulus relief money, and now the stench price increases. When the Fed raises interest rates, money becomes more expensive to borrow, harder to get, and more worthwhile to save. According to The Hill, the Fed wants demand for goods and services to fall closer to supply, which has dwindled as a result of obstacles created by the crisis. In an ideal world, the Fed can raise the interest rates gradually enough to bring down inflation without slowing the economy in Mexico and even Maine in having a child tax credit, everybody. And this proposal would allow a $1,000 child per credit for families with incomes of up to $75,000. Families making more than that could receive lower credits based on their income. And now one official even said that there is no limitation to the number of children that are covered, and it kind of phases in and out with different income levels. For instance, families making more than that could receive a lower credit based on income, and one state official has even confirmed that there is no limitation to the number of people that are covered, and it kind of phases in and out with different income levels. Conrad also said that the credit would put more money into the people of Nebraska, and it would give them the stimulus checks that pretty much everyone's been asking for. But though many lawmakers across the country have agreed to help the low income financially by expanding this credit, by giving people what they need, by giving people what's needed from the American government. And what's needed from the government is stimulus checks. For instance, the New York governor has already announced a plan to make government work better for the New Yorkers by transforming the way that people access services and benefits. In state agencies, the state will implement significant technological enhancements to reduce the hurdles and improve the child care assistance, and everyone around the United States should begin that stimulus payment. So it's good to see that Joe Biden's doing what he needs to do.
Will be replaced quickly. To apply for assistance from FEMA, you can go online to disasterassistance.gov. Disasterassistance.gov. You can also sign up in person for disaster recovery centers in the coming days. There are going to be at least 7 centers opened across this state, and FEMA is going to deploy disaster survivor assistance teams to communities that need them the most. We can go to the FEMA website to find that location. And look, as I've said on other disasters, the key is not just building back, it's building back stronger. Just because since I became president, we've spent $9 billion in disaster assistance to California for the extreme weather events they've had to go through. $9 billion, and these weeks have shown the compounding effect of the disasters. For example,